Today, the Weather and Climate Enterprise is an important entity. It includes programs such as the Weather Ready Nation Initiative, which was created to build resiliency in the face of vulnerability to extreme weather events. What is the Weather and Climate Enterprise? I had the opportunity to speak to Dr. David Titley, Director of the Center for Solutions to Weather and Climate Risk at Penn State.
So the Weather Enterprise is the way that we, internal to the weather community, talk about ourselves.
The Weather and Climate Enterprise is composed of 3 sectors, and each has its own unique specialties that are important to the enterprise. The public or government sector is responsible for data collection and the implementation of warnings. It also upgrades equipment such as satellites and radar.
There's the government piece. Most people think of that as the National Weather Service, and that's a very important piece. The National Weather Service kind of has that mission of safety of lives and property. They're the backbone of, if you will, of the weather enterprise. The Weather Service, along with other components of NOAA, provide us the satellite observations that you see every day on your TV screen in the evening. They provide the basic computer models that really help all forecasters, wherever they work, figure out what the weather today and tomorrow and 3 days from now is going to be. So the government's a huge part of the enterprise.
The private sector's responsibility is to communicate weather forecasts and risks associated with them to the public through various media outlets.
The way that the Weather Service disseminates or communicates a lot of their forecasts, including very important warnings and advisories, is actually through the private sector. And the private sector can kind of understand the specific audience and take and tune that data and meet a whole number of specialized needs that the government really isn't set up to do. The government's sort of set up to collect all the data, process the data, give you basic life and property saving information. The private sector can kind of then take it to another level of sophistication and kind of tune that forecast to meet specific needs.
The academic sector is responsible for research for things like improved warnings that will increase lead time, giving people more time to prepare for severe weather.
I mentioned there were 3 sectors, so there's one more, and that's the academic sector. And that's what places like here at Penn State do, with a large number of really smart people who have, almost all of whom who have PhDs in meteorology or atmospheric science or something similar. And what they're doing is they're really on the forefront of the knowledge of what is it that we still need to understand so that ultimately we can in fact have a better understanding of the weather, which will lead to better predictions.
But what makes the enterprise successful? It all comes down to improved communication and collaboration among the 3 sectors and, according to Dr. Titley, trust.
So what we have seen that when we combine these 3 pieces, the academic, the private, and the government, is it's really been a pretty remarkable increase in the capability of what we would call the weather enterprise as a whole. We're seeing about every decade, the forecasts are getting about 24 hours better. So what do I mean by that? I graduated from Penn State in 1980. Here we are in 2014. So really when I looked at a 3-day forecast back when I was a senior running Campus Weather Service, today's 6-day, almost our 7-day forecast is as accurate as that 3-day forecast that I was able to put out in the late 1970s and 1980. And the way we'll go forward is by trust. The 3 components of that enterprise have to have some degree of trust with each other so that if I tell you, hey, we're going to do something and I'm the academic sector and you're the private sector, I actually do it. There's some credibility and you know I'll deliver on my piece and I know you'll deliver on your piece. And with trust, it doesn't really matter who works for whom or sort of those formal relationships, because trust is like, it's like the oil in your car. It makes everything work smoothly. And conversely, if our enterprise ever runs out of trust, it's going to be tough sledding. So we don't want that. So we want to maintain trust. We want to keep those 3 big pieces working together so that ultimately it's the American public that is the beneficiary of our science and then of the applied forecasts that we can come up with.
During the week of August 11th, the American Meteorological Society will hold its annual summer community meeting right here in University Park with the theme of weather communication and communicating forecasts. The goal is to bring representatives from all sectors of the weather and climate enterprise to develop solutions for the betterment of communication and forecasts. For Weather or Not, I'm Jillian Bohenick.